what we know, many years back, there was this comment by Google's chief economist in the Economist magazine, which says data is widely available. What is scarce is the ability to extract wisdom from it. And that was what is called the data deluge. And after analyzing a couple of years of the larger industries, including oil and gas, what I thought, it is like wisdom is omnipresent, but what is challenging is that it is divided into data bits hidden in the silos, and thus reducing the ability to create value. Hence, today we are looking for taking advantage of data science and artificial intelligence. And this is why we are here today. If you look at the oil and gas industry, pretty much data is everywhere, from exploration to abandonment, across the whole oil well life cycle. And it comes in various sizes, different varieties, and things like that, because every process has its own uniqueness and complexity. How much of that is being used is a question of debate, depending on who you talk to. Anywhere from articles which says that 1% of the data is being used to 50% of the data being used, and this is a challenge. And I call the data not being used is called the dark data. But if you look at it, how do we leverage it? Then the only way you can leverage it by leveraging what is called data science. That means you look at the data, you mine it, you model it, and you build insights, and then eventually you want to do actions so that your goal in oil and gas industry is lowest cost per BOE. That is lowest cost for extracting oil per barrel, right? And that's where data science comes into play. But this is what leads to what we call digital transformation. And digital is a critical part of any industry, and especially for oil and gas industry, because what digital allows you is to actually reduce the cost in a very systematic manner, so that you can find oil in the shortest possible time, increase your exploration and production, as well as change the value equation across the entire value chain. That's a critical part for the digital. And why digital? Because we are in what most people will call it the industry 4.0 revolution, and there are three revolutions that took place. You can read about them. They're very well known, and we all live. We know the advantage and disadvantages of those, but mostly the advantages that have taken place in terms of our lives and work life. And today we are in industry 4.0. There are various articles that you can see, but what I summarize is that in order for industry 4.0 to work, what we should look at, what's the influence of various things in oil and gas industry. So for example, digital oil fields was a concept that was taught in oil and gas industry about 20 years back. Integrated reservoir management has been discussed extensively in almost 25, 30 years back. And then today we are talking about digital twins. So what is the influence of digital? These are the things that we should be really looking at, and what the status is, I'll discuss that in a few seconds. But if you look what digital plays a role, it can make or break companies, and some of these logos, they are trademarks of these companies. They are, what happened to them when the digital was not adopted very well. And Kodak's case is well known. Case studies after case studies exist in almost all management schools. They teach you that. The question is, they had a digital solution, but they did not implement it. They didn't go to the market first, thinking that their traditional business will have challenges. And then other companies took over. So there is a first mover advantage when it comes to adopting digital, because followers have a long way to catch up. And this is what we should really think in terms of oil and gas industries as well. What's happening actually in general terms is that the concept, we call it that there is a value shift happening, right? Digital value shift is the term that we use, because it is about transitioning to new business paradigms. That means your way of doing business, your business model, your business strategy, your business execution will change as your digital maturity increases, right? And when I talk about digital maturity, I look at the industry 4.0 in four blocks. One is where we are, what can we do, how do the technology play a role, and eventually how the disruptive growth can happen. And the way these boxes are arranged is to show that it could be an exponential growth when it comes to leveraging digital maturity. And what we want to focus on is that can we go from the bottom left, data-driven innovations, to disruptive growth for the industry. And that is is a learning curve, and we have to continue on that journey. But as I said, this digital maturity plays a big role, but we look at it where we are right now. How many digital fields are there which are 100% digital? The answer would be none, because even though the concept is 20 years old. And if we look at which IOC, NOC, or international oil company or national oil company have a true fully integrated reservoir management, that is like active, live, doing things in real time, and you will have difficulty finding an answer, because it's a program name in most places, because the fundamental of that, which is data, is not even integrated. It sits in the silos. And of course, the conversations on digital twin takes place, but it is yet to be realized, because it's one of the hardest challenge to solve, especially for companies like oil and gas, or any critical infrastructure companies for that matter. But then there is a roadmap to this madness, and there is a very simple, what I call, pillars of digital transformation, and those can be looked at in some simple terms like big data ecosystem, the cloud computing paradigm, the real-time insights, and eventually autonomous systems, which will lead to someday to digital twins. And what's a big data? That is a term that confuses a lot of people, and people think it's all about large amounts of data, which I fundamentally disagree. And then it is what I say, the big data is defined like this story from the Panchtantra from 300 BC, which says how blind people describe an elephant. They describe based on what they know and what they touch. And they say that elephant is like a snake or a drum or a fan. But if you look at it, that's how people describe big data. If you see, the first thing when you say big data, people will say it's about lots of data. The other set of people will say, oh, it's about data lakes. The third set will say it's about 3 Vs, 4 Vs, 5 Vs. And then you want to act a little bit more computer sciencey, then you can say, oh, it's about Hadoop, Storm, Kafka, or machine learning, or artificial intelligence. And today's buzzword is deep learning, so to say. But if you don't want to do anything, you can always say it's a buzzword. So if you think of it, these are the pieces of this puzzle. These are not the definitions of it. What it is for, especially for our industry, is about all the data. That means historical data, the current data, the future data. As long as we can pipeline the data, if oil and gas industry can pipeline oil and travel it millions of miles, hundreds of miles easily, but when it comes to data pipelining, we are behind. And so the question is, can we do data pipelining as well? And that means we can take care of any kind of data, and data can be anywhere in the space. In order to do that, one has to really leverage emerging technologies and a complete analytics value chain, so that we can actually remove the hidden inefficiencies and create business value. This is why that's the big data is all about business paradigm. How do we actually implement it? You can see that in 3 areas, 3 challenges that if we can solve. One is inefficient workflows and processes. Second one is massive and varied data sets. That is what I call dark data. As I mentioned in the first slide, the data is everywhere, but how much of it we use is challenging. And then third is like, how can we accelerate the pace of adopting the new emerging technologies of the digital era? Why is that important? Because if you look at it where we are still asking the traditional questions of how many copies of data we have, how many silos we have, who owns the data, and also we know that there is no data provenance in our industries. And what the biggest challenge that's coming is yet to come is this explosion of data that is likely to is happening already, like from fiber optic, right? We can have bottom hole assembly send out terabytes of data, 20,000 IoT sensors maybe in a field, and others, cloud and virtual and software defined things for SCADA and all. Then this is going to explode the data. And if we have now dark data, imagine the size of the dark data, what it will be in a couple of years if we don't address it now. And addressing means that we need to actually look at every aspect of this life cycle. And so this is just a cartoon diagram of saying where we spend most of our time currently. Say, for example, logging and reporting a significant amount of time in this life cycle, can we reduce it, automate it, and things like that. And you can look at process issues, operations issues, quality issues. All those things can be automated by leveraging data, and then we can actually have an efficient system. And this is just way to illustrate it how these things change. But this is a challenge because in our industry, the completed data, or what we call that, what percent of data is complete, is a challenge, because most people will say that will be anywhere from 30% to 50%. So, and many people will say it's actually less than 40%. This is based on multiple years of survey with lots of people in the industry. And then, of course, the second question that comes is, oh, our data is of not good quality. So if we have been collecting data for decades, why the data quality remains an issue is itself an inefficiency in the whole life cycle. And then, of course, when we look at what's a digital maturity, we can see that very few number of companies are on this journey in a mature fashion. But whatever the data there is, we can actually generate value. And then in order to generate value, we can leverage the tools of what we call data science. And they can range from anywhere from simple analytics to what I call at-scale analytics. And if you look at it, where the industry is, most of the industry does is what is called descriptive analytics. Very small amount of areas in operations we are doing predictive analytics, where almost 0 to maybe 1% of prescriptive analytics solutions are being built now, but there is not seriously any holistic view of the business or the industry or the company that exists. And of course, cognitive doesn't happen without holistic analytics in practical sense. So in order to leverage data science, many people actually use these terms very confusingly and think that it's okay to do that. Well, that's their choice. But in some sense, data science is about empowering the decision-making process with data, and then it augments the first principles, the statistical aspect of it, and that's where you leverage artificial intelligence. And if you look at it, artificial intelligence, algorithms, machine learning, and various algorithms have a for somewhat real hierarchical relationship. They are not independent of each other, but they are part of the ecosystem. And so if you think of it's all about science on the data, and science on the data can be done through either first principles or combined with data-driven innovation. In order to do that, one has to really do things at scale. And as I said, it's analytics at scale. That for that you need a platform, and the platform should be really at a single view. And this is what our platform is. And if you can look at it, what it does is it provides the content, it builds a connection between the content, and you can leverage the cloud computing paradigm. And then what you focus on is building these applications on top of it. And in order to actually achieve that, one should really think in a very simple forms, which I call the SMART approach. And the SMART approach is all about simplifying the data ingestion to insights, mashing up the data silos, be agile to the emerging technologies that are coming to adoption and actually implementation, so that your total cost of ownership remains lower and keeps going down. And at the same time, you should be technology agnostic, because otherwise it's very difficult to scale and expand. And we have seen that from the history of IT revolutions that have taken place in the industries. So if we look at it, we can actually look at value creation across the oil well life cycle, whether it's exploration, reservoir, well construction, or production, or from the voice of the oil field. And if you can, these are some examples of where the value can be created. And one of the best areas to look for any businesses is to look for their non-productive time. And this whole concept is what we call smart digital, right? So let's look at some case studies, and the case studies are very simple. You can go from very simple to slightly complex, and then more complex and unstructured data is being mined. And as we all know, that as the complexity in the data comes and the processes, the value creation also is significant when you actually do that. The simplest example is where we can actually look at highly structured Excel data and then do some visual graphics. We can actually improve the process by certain percentage, and that is what in this chart we talk about. The second one is actually leveraging PDF data that exist in many companies. And this one is actually something like 9,000 drilling reports, and that has been analyzed from in a modified version of natural language processing. And you can see that 20% of NPT could have been reduced significantly. And what you learn from it is that how, when and where these things are created, and at what step of the file life cycle your NPT actually started to begin, so that you can actually build predictive and prescriptive engine. The last one is actually highly leveraging unstructured data completely for looking at NPT, 16,000 documents, and you analyze this. And this has been published in an article here in the World Oil magazine for digital transformation with Smart Transform. And this is a journey with Petro Vietnam. And this we talk about how we leverage the smart approach in this analysis. And it's a significant cost savings or value creation for the business. So in summary, what we are talking about, that if we actually focus on digital transformation, that means we have to mature our digital footprint. And in order to do that, we have to do all the steps, like first improve the digitization process, which is actually in principle 100% doable, and then mature the digitalization process, and then eventually start creating value in terms of transforming workflows and processes, products and services, and eventually we could remain a significant player in the energy transition landscape. And with that, I thank you for your